And Karen is there.
Like Karen's coming in, so.
Yep.
Hi, sorry.
We're live on the Zoom feed, and let me start it, or sorry, the YouTube feed. And I'm going to connect us on Zoom recording. Okay. All right. So it is 7:34. So I'm going to call to order the annual district hearing meeting for the Region 9 Board of Education at 7:34 p.m. via Zoom. We are recording on the Zoom cloud and broadcasting live on the YouTube ER9 channel. And we have all members of the board present except for Juliet. Looks like Juliet Berry. So all other members of the board are here, and a few members of the public as well. All right, so I will move to item number 2 on the agenda, presentation of the proposed 2021-2022 operating budget for Joel Barlow High School, Region 9 School District. And just for the public's information, what we typically do in this meeting is just walk through the budget presentations, and then we have a section for public comment right after that for members of the public to either ask questions or provide their comments, thoughts on the budget. This will be the same budget presentation that was presented to the towns earlier, so no changes to that. And I will display it out here and we'll go through that. And this is the only item that we have on the agenda. And we also have our district meeting in a few weeks where we'll recess and go to machine voting after that. It's just part of our procedure of how we run things in the district here in Region 9. So with that, I'm going to move quickly to the budget presentation and share my screen. And I will quickly walk through that. Just give me 1 second. Presentation mode. Can everybody see the screen okay? All right, so I'm just going to quickly go through the budget presentation for Region 9 for our operating budget for next school year. So our overall budget was approved on the 16th of March with a 1% increase from the previous year's budget for a total of $24,595,255. The split between the two towns is based on student enrollment. So the split between the 815 students. The Reading portion of the budget will be $12,673,934 or 51.53%. And Easton is $11,921,320 or 48.47% of the budget. Those student enrollment numbers are from the October 1st actual enrollment numbers that were presented to the state. And the rest of the slides here will go through a little bit more detail of what's included in that. The apportionment change you can see is a decrease on the Reading side because of a decrease in number of students, 39 fewer, and an increase on the on the Easton side for 7.17% because of 9 additional students. And you can see the split for the budget change. It's a negative 553,000 for Reading and an increase of 797,000 for Easton because of the student split. All right, so just quickly, some of the items covered in the budget for the upcoming year. We did have some adjustments in our overall insurance based on the projections from Brown and Brown. So those are the first 2 items with some decreases there in the first 2 rows. We also are increasing our world language sections. So we have 1 class section each for 2 teachers in Spanish and French, and then 2 class sections for 1 teacher in Latin and etymology. These are all full-time teachers that are just getting additional sections to have the world language courses, which are now required by the state. We also had some increase in our special ed tuition increases for private school outplacements. And we also have a small increase for electricity based on an expected increase in rates for next year, as well as the expected capital improvements project over the summer for gym and cafeteria, which will increase our usage. Hopefully be energy efficient, but will also require a little bit more energy there. We're also reinstating a mid-shift custodian to bring us to a total of 7 custodians. This was a custodian that we removed a couple of years ago out of our budget, and unfortunately our timing wasn't so good because with COVID we've had a lot of extra cleaning that we've had to do and extra lunch sessions and so forth. So we need to bring that custodian back to get us to 7 full-time custodians. We're also including a full-time social worker for the Bridges program, which will bring us to a total of 2 full-time social workers in the building. We were borrowing a part-time social worker and psychiatrist from the general education program, and now those people will go back into the general ed, and we will now have a full-time social worker in the Bridges program dedicated to that program, and also could go back to general ed if we need help there as well. Total for courses, we'll have 515 sections of courses next year, with only 20 courses, as you can see, with fewer than 15 students, and those are in the advanced placement courses, AP, or other modified curricular classes. We also made a decision to maintain the school resource officer position. And then we've also included our portion, Region 9's portion of the central office budget for a new full-time director of technology and the salary increase there, which is split between the 3 districts. So quickly, I won't go through everything on this slide, but the special education portion of the budget is always an area that we take a look at, and unfortunately increases year on year. So this year we are seeing a $650,000 increase, up 12.59% from the previous year. And we are seeing an increase in students there with IEPs, individual education programs. And we're also experiencing a change with the state legislation on providing transition programs and services to age 22, where in the past we only had to provide services to age 21. So we're expecting to add some costs to carry for that extra year. And then also, as I mentioned before, some of our out-district private placement, we're seeing those costs go up. So this is a bit of an eye chart here, but just to show the increases over the last 3 years. Region 9, we've kept our budget increases between a negative 0.44% to 1%. And again, the increase to Easton, you can see, is because of the 9 students additional increase on the Easton side for a 797 increase versus the decrease on the Reading side of 39 students to bring us down to a negative 533 on the Reading side. So you can see those numbers there highlighted in yellow, the apportionment changes. And then finally, just summarizing what is in this budget for a return to normal after we've been mostly online and hybrid through this year for the pandemic. We are restoring all of our extracurricular activities to the full amounts back to pre-COVID levels for athletics and extracurriculars. As I mentioned before, we're bringing on a full-time social worker for the Bridges program to free up the barred social worker and psychologist from the general education programs. Maintaining the resource officer, as I mentioned, increasing our language offerings for the state requirement. The mid-shift janitor including in. We also have some funding in here for some additional consulting services for our DEI program for next year. And I think I've covered most of the others on here. So I won't go through the rest of the list here. All right. And just in summary, we are at our annual Region 9 district hearing today on the 5th. And then we've got a regular board meeting coming up. So our next budget action is on May 3rd, which is our Region 9 district meeting, where again, we'll read into the record and then move to a machine vote for the town referendums, which are now tentatively on the 4th of May, and machine votes for both towns. All right, and that concludes the budget presentation. So I'll stop sharing. And any of the board members, any comments? I know Mike was keeping a timer on me. But board members, any questions or any comments before we move on to public comment and allow the members of the public to make any comments around the budget or ask questions? All right. Okay, then I am going to open it up to members of the public. We have a few members on, and I think I can see everybody on the screen. We don't have too many members of the public, so I think I can see everybody here. If you would like to speak, please either raise your hand or the hand symbol or wave in the window. We will keep an eye on the time and would like you to keep your comments relevant to the budget, if you will. And we'll go ahead and open it up for public comment. So many members of the public, if you'd like to speak, raise your hand and then introduce yourself, name and address before you start. All right, I see Ann. So Ann, go ahead. You're unmuted. Go ahead.
Good evening. I have some questions and not really, I've not really gone through the Region 9 process before, so forgive me if my questions seem odd and more like the lower board. I'm
sorry to interrupt. You just need to identify your address.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Name and address, Ann.
Sorry, Ann Minuski, 20 Morning Glory. Sorry.
Thank you.
One of my questions is the funds that were returned, I'll call it returned, I'm not a finance person, to the towns. How is that seen in the current school budget for 21-22? So there were over $800,000 returned to the town of Easton, but I haven't seen anything removed as far as, you know, it's hard because we don't do zero-based budgeting.
Right. Yeah, and I can answer that, and that's a good point. I did not mention that in my comments on the budget presentation. So for Region 9, we usually make our decision on unexpended funds from last year's operating budget at near the end of our fiscal year. And as a regional school district, we have a couple options that we can use that money. We can obviously return it to the towns. We are allowed to make an additional contribution or a contribution to our pension fund. We can put it into our health insurance reserve, or we can put it into capital, or any of those options. We can apply all of those. Right now, and Mr. Zachary, you can correct me on my numbers. I think we're between 215 and 250,000 roughly, but we still, that number, you know, is kind of a moving target as we still have bills coming in, the school year still operating. We will try to get a more precise number as we get towards May, June, and then we, in our board meeting, will make an official decision on how we'll do the allocations and where those monies will go. Mr. Zachary, was I close on the number?
You're close enough.
All right, thank you. So in the operating budget, to answer your question specifically, and that money is money from last year, so it is not applied in the budget in this year. So those unexpended, we would allocate, like I said, back to those 4 other items. They're not reflected in the operating budget because we can't put it directly in the operating budget itself for next year.
Okay, so if I'm following correctly, so from 2019-20, the monies that are unexpended, yes, correct?
Correct.
Sorry,
Yes.
Help me out with the
Yes, that's
technical
correct. Yes,
accounting
unexpended.
terms.
So whatever is unexpended from last year's budget, again, as a regional school district, we can give back to the town. We can put in our health insurance reserve, we can put in our pension fund, or we can put in our capital plan. And so we cannot put any of it into the operating budget for the next year.
Okay, so if I can help, let me clarify.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Chair.
In the audited financial statements and for the 2019-2020 year, that amount that we already committed, Region 9 already said, Reading and Easton, here's your money back. There was a receivable in the audited financial statements that's been signed off by a third-party auditor and filed by the state that actually went back. The money is already back in the town. So there's nothing, not only can, to Todd's point, are we prohibited in reducing the 2020, 2021,
21,
22
22
budget. Yeah, we that money's already there. So there's nothing
Right.
to look for in the budget that we're presenting for approval.
Right. So
The
the
towns already have
800 or
that
so,
money back.
yeah, exactly. The 2019 money that went back to the town is already back to the town.
In layman's term, the check is already cleared.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my question is, as far as the $45,000 that was given to the DEI group and also to the $40,000 that was allocated to the counseling program that had no RFP on that program, I'm not sure, I'm not following how were those funds allocated before the end of this school year?
They were out of last year's budget.
So both of those items were
Out
not
of last
capital,
year's budget.
not pension fund, not the items that you said, but it was still given. So I don't know as far as, and again, I'm new to the Region 9 part of it, but I still know that there's procedures, there are legal procedures. So for tonight's meeting, the public has the right to do what?
To ask questions and express your support or non-support of the budget.
So I can't make a comment that says, I want $45,000 returned to the taxpayers of Easton and Reading, that I don't want a DEI program because we see that critical race theory is really bad, or the $40,000 that had no RFP, that money should not be put into next year's budget. I can't
You
ask
can
for that
certainly
money.
do that, and you've already done so, and you certainly can do that. That money, though, is out of last year's operating budget, not this year's budget. So yes, you can make those comments, but again, that money came out of last year's operating budget, which we're still in right now. The presentation that I just went through is for next year's operating budget.
So I don't want those things in next year's school budget.
They are
because they're
not in next year's budget. They are in this year's operating budget.
Okay, so how would I know if those programs are going to be put in next year's budget or not? Because it was a shell game when the principal of the school and the director of finance allowed for the funds to be taken out and there was no RFP done. I'm not understanding because in counseling, and I'm a former counselor, I'm a recovering counselor, as I like to say, the children are supposed to be going to school for academic knowledge. And I don't know if people saw the letter I wrote into the patch, but I'm very, very, very concerned that the children are getting less of an education and more of a social emotional learning situation that is not academic. And that's, and to be quite honest, we know, we in the National Child Abuse in the Classroom group, that the data is being taken from our kids, that a lot of parents are deciding, you know what, this isn't education anymore. It's data collection.
So Ann, though, to answer your question, for any future items that go through RFP or are requested to the board to approve, those will be covered in future board meetings. And by all means, you're invited as a member of the public to come and express your concern or support of those items at future meetings when any of those items that come up that are not part of the existing operating budget or the proposed operating budget for 21-22. And if you would like to see any of the detail items that are in there, the items are posted for the 21-22 budget, so you can see how
It's
those things
online.
are allocated.
Okay.
But yeah, anything that comes up as general operating always gets discussed at one of our board meetings before it gets approved.
Okay, one last question. I
Yes.
saw there's 515 sections of classes. Is that correct? 515 sections of classes, four grades, and I think your enrollment somewhere around 867 kids.
Yes, so 515 sections of courses. All those aren't necessarily run at the same time, obviously, but that's how many courses that are offered.
Well, that's kind of a gray area where I think So there's 867 children in the school, yet 515 sections of courses. You said, so the courses are not all being run at this time. What number of courses are being run right now?
I'll refer that if Dr. Pinn, if you'd like to answer, but again, there are different semesters, right? Different sections happening during the course of the year, right? So we don't run all of those simultaneously because you have an A
Right,
and
some
a B
are
course and
half-year
so forth,
courses,
right?
sure,
Yeah.
or I don't know what else they have.
Yeah. I'll let Dr. Pinn, if you want to elaborate more on how those courses are spaced out.
Thank you. I was trying to unmute. So we run courses based on the courses that students sign up for. So if we don't get the enrollment for particular sections, courses don't run. And those are decisions that we're making right now with our courses. All of our courses are found in the program of studies, which is online. And you'll see courses. So I'm off the top of my head, I'm thinking of, we have a theater course. Some years we haven't had enrollment, it hasn't run. I believe this year it's running. I'd have to go back and look at the enrollment numbers. So that's how we run the courses. If students don't sign up for a particular course or not enough students sign up, then the courses aren't run. But you could see the whole program of studies is online with all of the courses and a course description.
Right. So the 505,
And that could be matched
515
back,
are the
online
ones
again
that
into the curriculum.
we would have. Yeah, 515. Again, if all the students don't sign up, we won't offer 515. It'll be far fewer, and those are spaced out over the school year as prerequisites, electives, etc.
Correct.
Well,
That's just how many
yeah,
we could.
that's another point where there are requirements by the state to
Yes,
have
correct.
for matriculation, whatever, through the 4 years of high school. So I know it used to be, I know at my son's school, it's something like 3 credits per class, or I don't even know what the numbers are, but the required classes, English, history, math,
Correct.
science, and then your electives. So maybe Ms. Pinn, is there information on, you said, what's the book called?
It's called the Program of Studies. And in there too, you will find the graduation requirements and how those credits are counted and broken down.
And that's on the high school website.
On the high school website, you'll find actually 2 program of studies, one for this current year we're in and one for next year. They get updated every year.
Gina, and wouldn't it be not, I mean, it's 500 something courses, but it's probably what, like 200 and something per semester? I mean, it's not, right? Would that be correct?
Right, I'd have to get you those numbers.
Yeah, I'm not looking for
But
exact, but
we
about
Right, we put that
it's
number
looking at
in.
the whole year, but it's not that. It's
Right. We put that number in because it was really speaking to class size. Out of the courses, very few of them are running with under 15 students. 2% is what we had estimated, and that's pretty consistent with what we run.
13 students per class in high school?
Under 50, we're talking about courses that run under 15.
that's specialized language courses, courses that are higher level language courses.
Advanced placement.
Math,
Yeah.
And all of this was shared already publicly in public meetings of the curriculum committee meeting.
Yes.
It's in the recordings, it's in the minutes, it's everywhere. Might I
This
say
is a budget concern only.
Yeah.
This is not a curriculum discussion. Respectfully, Mr. Chairman.
perhaps if Mrs. Minuski or others are really interested in the detail, perhaps I could suggest a detailed meeting that, just in fairness to other people that have commented during the budget process, publicly, we haven't allotted this much time to any individual commenter, and to be fair to everyone, perhaps I might suggest an offline meeting so that there can be a dialogue.
That's
Thank you
okay.
very
I'm a
much for your
taxpayer.
consideration.
I'm done for now. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Does anyone else from the public have comments? All right. Seeing none, then I'll move on to board member comments. Any members of the board like to comment? All right. Seeing no board member comments, then we will move on to adjournment, the next item. 5. So a motion to adjourn. All right. right, I saw Karen and Gwen, so Karen, with the second by Gwen. Any other, assuming no other discussion on that, and we've got another meeting to move to, so thank you. We'll go ahead and adjourn then. All in favor? Aye. All right. Passes, so we are adjourned officially at 7:58 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.